Christmas dinner. Prawn cocktail, check. Turkey, check. Christmas pudding, check. Ooh, but what to have with the cheese board?
Fig and Walnut Sourdough. Yes, Christmas is coming, the season of overindulgence, and in this house, cheese eating. And with that cheese, I want some amazing bread. So this year I'm going for walnut and fig sourdough. If you haven't made sourdough before, then I suggest you check out my foolproof sourdough video. Give that a go. There's probably still just time to build your sourdough starter and get a few practice loaves in before Christmas. But if you've had some success with that, or you've already made sourdough and it's working well, then give this a go. Compared to the foolproof sourdough video, it's fairly similar. We're just stepping things up a little bit. The hydration's going up to about 73%, I think, so it's going to be a little bit trickier, but give it a go. I can't guarantee the results like I can with the other one, but I'm pretty sure it's going to work. So for this recipe, you're going to need 270 grams of strong white bread flour, 50 grams of wholemeal flour, 75 grams of dried figs, 100 grams of walnuts, 7 grams of salt, 220 grams of water, 100 grams of active sourdough starter, and my secret ingredient, a bit of walnut oil. That's obviously going to add a bit of walnut flavour, but it also gives you a slightly softer crumb. When it comes to the figs, you just want dried figs, but do look out for these like soft dried figs. They're obviously dried, but they're still soft, sticky, a little bit sort of gooey inside, which is much nicer than your kind of standard dried fig, which can be a little bit hard, a little bit chewy. If you like that texture, go for it, but I do like the softer ones. And with your walnuts, if you've got whole ones, just give them a crush with your thumb and fingers, break them into 3 or 4 pieces each. Whole nuts in them might just be a little bit too much. So we're going to follow the process of the foolproof sourdough video, pretty much the same, particularly to start with. So that involves the auto-lease. So for that we'll get our flours and water in the bowl, give them a little mix, and then leave it for half an hour to maybe 4 hours. So that's the 270 grams of strong white bread flour, 50 grams of whole milk flour, and the 220 grams of water into the mixer. Just bring it together into a shaggy mass and then leave that. Okay, so that's been half an hour. I covered it with a tea towel just to stop it drying out. If you can leave it for longer, really I suggest you do, maybe an hour, 2 hours, like I say, up to 4, and you'll just notice you get a much stretchier, more extensible dough, which is really going to help your final loaf. So we're going to get our sourdough starter in there now. So we need 100 grams of that. So I fed this last night. It's over doubled, probably 2.5 times. Smelling lovely, really bubbly. And we just want 100 grams of that. Oh, look at that. Actually, that's 99. Let's be accurate. 100 grams of that. There we go. Onto the mixer, and we'll mix that for about 3 minutes till fully incorporated. Okay, so that's been 3 minutes. I'll just show you. Nice and incorporated. And I just wanted to show you in the bowl. See the sides of the bowl looking quite clean. As the dough sort of moves around, it pulls it off the side, so you end up with a sticky but single solid mass. So now that can sit there for another half an hour just to give time for the sourdough starter to get the fermentation process underway, and then we'll add our salt. So we'll just leave that covered again for half an hour. Okay, so that's been another 30 minutes. Now we are going to add our salt and our walnut oil. We'll mix it for another 3 minutes and then we'll be into our bulk proofing time. So we'll take, I'm just going to take this off because it needs about a tablespoon of the walnut oil, but I haven't weighed that yet. So we'll do that right now. So I know that is 7 grams of salt. Sorry, scales just need to reset. So that's our 7 grams of salt, and then a tablespoon of olive oil, like that, is exactly 25 grams. So 25 grams of oil. We'll get that mixing again for 3 minutes. Okay, so that's been 3 minutes. The dough's looking nice and smooth, nice and homogenized. We'll scrape that off the dough hook. There we go. And now we can leave that, we'll just put a tea towel over it. But bulk proof is going to be 6 hours, but we're going to do a set of stretch and folds every hour for the first 4 hours, so that'll be 4 sets of stretch and fold. And during the first one is when we're going to incorporate our nuts and our figs. So to start with, just leave it for 1 hour. Okay, so we're an hour into our bulk proof, so it's time to do our first set of stretch and folds. And like I said, this is the point that we're going to incorporate our figs and our nuts. So as you can see, not grown too much, a little bit. We've still got another 5 hours to go. So sprinkle your figs over the top. Just break the chunks up so they're sort of all individual. Spread them around. Spread the walnuts on top, and then just push them into the top of the dough. So it looks like that, all covered in the figs and nuts. Then if you wet your hand, it'll just stop the dough from sticking too much. Reach in around the back of the dough there, grab it, pull it like that, and then fold it over itself. So you're pulling it out and wrapping it over the top of the nuts and the figs. Pull those other ones round, turn it 90 degrees, wet the hand again, in, stretch it, and then fold it over. We'll repeat that 2 more times. So turn the bowl another 90 degrees, stretch and fold, and the last one, you can see we've got a nice round there, I don't know if you can see, and this side's still stuck to the bowl. So that's the one we're going to grab, lift it up, fold it over itself, and then tuck that round like that, and you can see it's created a nice round ball. All the figs and nuts are trapped within there. Over the next 3 sets of turns, they're going to get more distributed, so it won't just be sort of a pocket of nuts, like a, what are those pizzas called? There's a pizza anyway with stuffing like that. You don't want that, you want them kind of distributed through it. So we'll do this once every hour for the next 3 hours, then I'll cover it with some cling film and leave it for the final 2 hours. Okay, so that's the end of the bulk proof. If you've watched my previous foolproof sourdough recipe, you'll know this would be the point. We would tip the dough out, divide it in 2 and give it a bench rest. However, for this recipe, as we're only making 1 small loaf, we're not going to be dividing the dough, and it's going to be staying in the shape it's pretty much been all along in this bowl. So we can kind of skip the pre-shape and bench rest and just go through to the final shaping. So if we take the cling film off there, you can see we've got a good bit of volume, some bigger air pockets forming on top. Smells really nice. We'll dust the worktop with a little bit of flour. I'm using some rice flour, which really is non-stick. It's great stuff. It must be more absorbent than normal flour, so you don't need as much. We'll use some of that to dust the banatone. There we go. So we've got a little bit on the worktop, and then we just want to, a little bit on my hand as well so it doesn't stick. We just want to ease this dough out. And I'm going to try and get it so the bottom of the dough there that was in the bowl will remain as the bottom. Stretch it out a little bit. And then to shape this, we're going to pull the bottom towards you, lift it up by a third. So we've got a third remaining. Pull the sides, that side out and fold it in. Now pull that side out and fold that one over the top. And now grab the back of it, pull it away from you and up again by a third. Now I'm just going to get a little bit more flour in the hands. Where it's joined, push your thumbs in and pull it back on itself and just keep rolling it to make a nice taut cylinder. And use the bench scraper just to lift that up. At this point you can just get a touch more flour down, give it a roll over, and then these ends, if you just push them in, pull the dough out. There's a big bit of fig there, so I'm going to push that in. Tuck that in, do the other side, push that in, just to neaten it up. That's fine. And now I really don't want this to stick in the banatone, so a touch more flour on top. Flip it over, so that was the seam. That's going to go on top into our banatone, and we'll just lay that little bit of cling film on top. Now you've got two options for the final proof here. Because we've used slightly less starter than we did in the foolproof sourdough recipe, this you could do a long proof in the fridge. So if you've made this in the evening, at this point, cover it, pop it in the fridge overnight, so a good 12 hours, and in the morning you can bake that straight from the fridge. Don't let it come back up to room temperature. I'm not going to do that though. I'm just going to bake it, well, once we've proofed it now. So we'll let that proof for about half an hour to an hour. So I'm going to check it after half an hour and we'll see how it looks. Because we've done the really long bulk proof and we can see we've got a lot of gas and we haven't squidged that out when we've been shaping it, that's why I do a shorter final proof. I find if I follow recipes where it says do a final proof for 3, 4, 5 hours, it always overproofs and I end up with a flat loaf. So it's something I'm experimenting with, but for now, just a short final proof, half an hour to an hour, will do the trick. Okay, we're ready to bake this loaf. I let mine proof for the full hour in the end. The house is a little bit chilly, so I thought it could take it. It's puffed up nicely. We've got a few bubbles forming around the side. Springs back when you touch it. We'll see how this one turns out. So now it's just a case of being organised. You need to have your oven preheated to 240 degrees centigrade. You need to have your stock pot or Dutch oven in there preheating. I've just brought mine out. And then you need a little bit of baking parchment and your bread lane or a razor blade or a sharp knife. So it's just a case of carefully, because that is hot, getting the loaf into the pan. So I tend to stick my paper on top, flip the pan upside down, flip it over like that. Then you probably can't see, but with the razor blade just score the top, lid on, and now that's going to go into the oven, 240 degrees and cook it for 20 minutes with the lid on. Then take the lid off, turn the oven down to 200 and bake it for another 20 minutes, so 40 minutes in total. Check it after half an hour. If the crust's starting to look dark and done, you can turn the oven down to 180 and cook it at 180 for that final 10 minutes. If you've done my foolproof sourdough recipe, there's been a few comments saying the bottom comes out very well done. What I suggest you do is, at the point where you take the lid off, so after 20 minutes, actually take the whole loaf out of the pan, it'll be set enough, and put it directly on one of the oven shelves and cook it for its final 20 minutes out of the pan. Then you haven't got that heat radiating from the pan that's really toasting the bottom. So I'm going to get this in the oven and join me back here for the result. Oh yes, look at that beauty! Rustic, gnarly, figs and walnuts poking out everywhere, but that's part of the charm. To me, that is beautiful. Got a good ear. Get it onto a wire rack, let it cool for at least a couple of hours until you cut into it. Once I've cut into this one, I'll post some photos on the end of the video, and I'll also pop them on Instagram. If you give this recipe a go or follow any of my other tutorials, please post your results on Instagram with the hashtag BuzzbyBakes, as I love to see the results you're getting. But give this one a go for Christmas. It's going to be perfect with goat's cheese, blue cheese, cheddar. Think of it as a bread sort of with the chutney built in. It's also going to go well with cured meats, Parma ham, salami, you name it. It's an absolute winner. So if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, leave your comments and feedback below, and please subscribe to the channel. We're very slowly making our way to 1,000 subscribers, which will be a fantastic milestone to achieve, maybe by the end of the year, who knows. But thank you for watching, thank you for supporting me, and if I don't get to post another video before the end of the year, it just leaves me to say Merry Christmas and have a happy, bakey New Year.